People skills, first of all. I mean, he has to talk to all these people. He's got to know how to talk to them. And I mean, I know it's got to be a lot of hard work to like do all that and like talk to all these important people and help like people from your community do what they can.
He really was able to, again negotiate between the high powers and the common people, like with Nixon, Kennedy, and Johnson.
I didn't know that there was a person from Omaha. Like, he moved to Omaha to be a civil rights leader.
He was so straightforward. He didn't, but he was honest and diplomatic at the same time.
I believe, in my opinion, his main goal was equality and for blacks to have a privilege that they didn't have before. I think he kind of persuaded them.
Like really good people skills. He needs to be a good leader.
When I first started the documentary, I have heard about Whitney Young. We learned like his point of cross and what he really wanted to do, so this really opened up more about him to me.
Our students had an opportunity to participate in a multimedia video project. It was themed around the life of Whitney Young and really learn a little bit about the impact that Mr. Young had, not only on the national level, but while he was here as president and CEO of the Urban League of Nebraska. My name is Thomas Warren. I currently serve as president and chief executive officer at the Urban League of Nebraska. I've served for 9 years. I grew up during the civil rights era of the 60s. And having had some understanding of what was occurring at that time really had an influence on my personal growth and social development.
But maybe it's helping a group of people so they can help people and they can help 10 more people. Is it education? Is it violence? Who have been through all the things that we're talking about? So any questions that you have, imagine who you're going to ask, how to achieve your goal.
It takes motivation, like integrity, in order to like pursue your dreams as a community, along with like his goals. Earlier, I want to say 2 weeks ago, we interviewed Mr. Majors. I didn't know that he came here just to work, and like it surprised me because why would you come to Omaha?
You didn't have to have an education on the cotton field. You could pick the cotton, whole cotton, work the cotton field without an education. You didn't need an education to do that. My name is Major Page Jr.
Where are you from?
I'm from Arkansas. I was born in Arkansas, Lake Village, Arkansas. My mom and dad, they stayed out in the country. When I could go to school, I was about 14, 15 years old then. I was big enough to go to work. I moved to Omaha in 1960. I was working in the packing plant. That's where I got a job at. I worked there for 34 years in the packing plant right here in Omaha. In 8 years. In 8 years, I had bought me a house and paid for it.
What did that mean to you?
Doesn't mean a whole lot. I had a house of my own. I didn't have to, nobody ever coming to my house collecting rent. I didn't have to worry about being late for payments because I paid it off in the 8 years. I bought the house and I paid it off in 8 years.
When we think back, the housing discrimination that was occurring was a product of redlining. In this book, The Militant Mediator, and There's a section in the book on the Omaha years when Whitney was here. And Whitney Young was working on anti-housing discrimination in the 50s with then Phil Dodge, a real estate broker, a very prominent business owner, and his relationship and working with Whitney to combat some of the discrimination, whether it was employment opportunities or housing discrimination. But certainly when you listen to Mr. Page and he shares some of his experience may have been the result of Mr. Young's efforts.
My first encounter was when I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and my dad would have a cocktail party. And at that time, Whitney Young had just joined the Urban League. He appeared to me as a very nice and kind of a funny guy. There was something more between their relationship than simply trying to get the agenda of the Urban League off the ground. There was a genuine friendship there.
There's many stories of how Grandpa and Whitney Young would work together. That Grandpa and Whitney went to the telephone company, and the telephone company wasn't allowing people of color to work in the telephone company. And the person came away saying that they would do it, but they'd put a glass barrier around those people. My grandpa was outraged at that, and Whitney stopped him and said, let's take this win. And so I think it says something about Whitney's character of let's take the win. And actually later on they found that it was too expensive to put the glass barriers up. And so that was even a bigger win.
See, and that's what Whitney did, okay? Whitney had a gift of gab. He was trained as an engineer at MIT, by the way. Yeah, And then, see, what got him, he had to go in the Army, okay? Because he was able to mediate at least some changes in between the white Army officers and the black workers in the way they were being treated. And that changed his life. Yeah. At one time, though, Mr. Young was not necessarily viewed real well, okay? People were sort of, was he really good for us?
I think he was misunderstood by many in the civil rights movement. He was still a very active part of it, of course. The so-called Black Power movement became very popular in a lot of areas in the cities. And Whitney Young said, actually, you don't get black power by chanting it. You get black power by acting on it. He knew where the power lay, and he knew that he was going to have to deal candidly with those people who were empowered.
For me to work at a job with paying fairly decent money, it's important was I had a family I had to take care of. I tell you the truth, I can't really have no hate in my heart, but really tell you the truth.
And I think that's the Omaha that my grandpa believed in, and I know my dad believes in it, and that if we all try, this can be a great place. But I think it's continual improvement. It's work that we all need to continue to do. And most importantly, the biggest dignity of all is having a job. And I know Grandpa worked well with Whitney Young to make sure that it was possible that people could have jobs in Omaha.
Well, knowledge is the way to decrease our fears. Fear is a big thing in our society, and you want to get over fear, and that's a big obstacle.
Education and educational attainment is the key. It's the key to helping people out of poverty. It's a key to understanding. It's a key to a better country. He was, as you should know, one of the, called the Big Six, the people who organized the March on Washington. And there's a story that he and the Big Six were meeting with President Kennedy, and according to, I believe, John Lewis, as the conversation seemed to go toward maybe we ought to take a wait and see on this, he looked at JFK and said, "Mr. President, which side are you on?" And it was one of those nice little moments that may have changed history, and that's Whitney Young. He did a lot of his best work. That you can be involved in resistance without violence and without anger. I think he was a very, very pragmatic man who had goals, and he was very successful in achieving those goals.
Whitney Young's approach to facilitating change was through advocacy and working within institutions to facilitate change. His legacy should serve as an inspiration to our next generation. Mr. Young, his work was, how do we prepare the next generation? How do we prepare the next generation's leaders? How do we prepare the next generation's workforce? The other part is paying it forward. Find a way to give something back. Give something back to your community, whether it's your time, your talent, or your treasure. And projects like this, it instills in our youth that sense of community. And in my opinion, that's what it's going to take to make our city a better place to live. We want our youth and young adults to enter into the workplace, equipped with the skills not just to survive, but to thrive in those environments.
You have to own up to your word, like not be a procrastinator, and persuasive, definitely persuasive.
Because I've done this documentary, that I've met other people with different perspectives.
Because like if you don't understand others, you can't like get through to them and see their point of view.
When I change the world, I would like for everyone to be together. I know there's been a lot of leaders that try to, but we're still segregated in a way.
I will change the world by opening up the young people, like next generation's lives, not only black people, but different races, on what's happening today.
With education was the key that you can change the world, you can change a lot of things.
I will change the world by being a role model for young women and self-confidence.
I want to change the world by breaking down the barriers of color.
I would change the world by making people understand other people's culture.
I will change the world by helping those in poverty. If you could go back in time, what would you change for blacks?
If I had to go back in time, well, freedom. I'd change the way they had to live back then. Yeah.
You don't get black power by chanting it. You get it by doing what the other groups have done.